Welcome back to this week's episode of Hormones, Metabolism, and You. I'm your host, Dr. Cassie Smith. I'm a functional endocrinologist. Thank you for spending this next hour with me. Thank you for wanting to better your health and get really good education on how to feel better and live a happy and healthy life. Today, I'm ecstatic to interview one of the best functional health coaches there is, Vince Pitstick. So if you are in the functional medicine space and you know anything about functional medicine, you know that nutrition, counseling, and coaching is becoming huge. I have one of the OGs, the original functional health coach ever, Vince Pitstick. Today on this episode, we dive into so many great things. We talk about what inspired him to pursue functional health coaching and how his approach has evolved over the years that he's done it, about 15 years now. I asked him to tell me the key differences between functional health and traditional medicine, where they're intersecting, how we get traditional providers to collaborate with functional health coaches, and vice versa. We talked about common misconceptions doctors have about functional health coaches and the misconceptions functional health coaches have about doctors. And we talked about how his team look at lab work, hormone panels, GI maps, Dutch test, all the things when working with clients and how they utilize those to make those clients better. We talked about in particular certain things that they treat, PCOS, hormone imbalances, hypothyroidism, insulin resistance. What are the key pillars in these people? Like, how do we make these people better from a lifestyle perspective? I asked him to kind of walk us through a general outline of programs that he offers his patients with these hormone issues. And we talked about the role that gut health, nutrition, sleep, stress, all those play in this approach of actually making people better. So with Vince Pitstick, with over 19 years of dedication to health and wellness, stands as a testament to the power of evolution in the realm of functional medicine and nutritional health. His journey originated from humble beginnings as a child, struck with a rare illness at age 8, which I'll let him tell you about. He fought for over 20 years to find freedom and became a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. This blossomed into a role as a practitioner in the lifestyle and functional medicine world, and he became a nutritional coach. He created this new field of practitioner called the functional health coach in 2010. In 2012, he channeled his passion and extensive knowledge into founding Vital Coaching, known at the time as Nutrition Dynamic. This venture was more than a business, it was a mission to offer a new form of concierge functional medicine delivered by a coach. It was not just a company, but a beacon of hope for those seeking a path for better health. And then over the last decade, he immersed himself into the practice and science of functional health. He made this new transformation 4F process. It's a comprehensive care plan for health and wellness, which is taught to medical practitioners and coaches all over the world at his university called Metabolic Mentor U. Today, his original concierge medicine coaching program, Vital Coaching, stands as the largest one-on-one health coaching company in the United States. Its mission and the mission of his health network is to fight the global health pandemic, one client at a time. This is not just a statement, but it's actually realized every single day. The 4F system is now offered in over 2,000 programs worldwide, reaching millions a year. His social media, we will put all of his handles in the show note. I am so excited for this interview. I hope that you guys find it very helpful as we kind of tease out functional medicine, functional coaching, and how we can use this with traditional medicine to make people actually better. I hope you found that information educational. I really wanted to let people know that there is an outlet, even in traditional medicine, with these health coaches. They are amazing. Modern Endocrine has a phenomenal health coach. And I really think that this is one of the keys to bridging that gap with traditional medicine and helping make people not so sick, being able to help people become well. And so I thought that this was a great conversation just to help people understand the difference between functional and traditional medicine and how we could incorporate some things, even if you are in a traditional medicine system, to really help start opening your eyes and helping patients get well. So if you are somebody who is looking for a health coach or you want this more holistic approach, you think, man, this sounds great. Modern Endocrine has a license in 39 states now. We do virtual visits. We have a health coach. We would be happy to see you. There's more information on our website with a list of every state we can do virtual visits in. If you liked this information, please make sure that you leave us a review. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, we're there. But reviews help me know that I'm doing what I need to be doing and you like the education. I'm very active on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Find me there, send me messages, let me know what you want to learn about. I'm happy to help educate you. And remember, please share this because education is how we are going to change the trajectory of healthcare. Join me next week on the next episode of Hormones, Metabolism, and You. Have a great week. All right, so I have Vince Pitstick with me today. You guys, I'm so excited about this interview. So thank you for being with me. Thank you for your time. I think you do amazing things for people. I want to start by saying that. And then I just want you to tell everyone what first inspired you to pursue functional health coaching and how has that like evolved over the last 15, 20 years that you've been doing this?
Yeah. So for your listeners or watchers, I would suggest to strap in. This isn't like your mom's functional medicine conversation because my story of getting here is pretty wild. And I think it speaks to like the first certification should be by life. Like what you go through makes you more adept to be able to help others. And so, you know, if people are looking for an exciting hour, they should stay tuned. But what happened is I was really sick, 7 years old, diagnosed with a bunch of really rare conditions. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. Turns out it was chemical exposure on the farm, emotional trauma. My parents divorced, separated. It was nasty pretty early. And I was kind of boy in the bubble. I lived boy in the bubble for a very, very long time. And no one could figure out what's going on. And different physical, mental diagnoses or labels were slapped on me. I kind of was one of the, Western medicine dropouts very, very early. So I became aware of alternative sources of medicine outside of Western allopathic medicine relatively early because of necessity, looking for solutions. So that kind of turned into, it was like 20 years I battled until I got well and well enough. We're always recovering. That ended up turning into a life of education in the nutrition health space. It ended up being a combination of detoxing, working with functional practitioners, working with a therapist, getting into the gym. All of these factors together were all co-collaborators on my recovery. And you really can't take one of them out, which is one of the reasons that modern medicine has a hard time solving chronic health issues, which is what I come to try to solve the problem for later. So I ended up building a medically integrated nutrition training program outside of Chicago where people would come in by a membership. They get chiropractic, they get hormones from a certain doctor's office. I would be their guide, I'd be their lead coach. I would train them, I would do their nutrition. That program blew up. I got pretty popular and I got poached by one of the larger health organizations globally, which is Metagenics. And I ended up training under Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who's the founder of IFM, Institute of Functional Medicine, and out in Gig Harbor, Washington, and also in San Clemente, California. And I had already been an expert in weight loss, aesthetic nutrition, fat loss nutrition, training, all of these other fundamentals that I think are still very relevant to medicine. It is a form of functional medicine because it's root cause. But when they exposed me to all the research, and I hope anyone listening to this realizes that there's a whole world of research out there that you're just not exposed to, that once you start opening that crack or that door, like it's like pulling the string on the clothes that like just everything falls apart. Like I began to realize that there was all of this world I just didn't know existed and all of this science that was being done. And I got trained in alternative functional medicine, which is root cause medicine, which we could get into more later. And then because of my background, because of my story, and because of my training, they sent me out to be a functional medicine consultant where I would go in, consult for doctors, practices, networks. I would help build their cash pay, holistic healthcare, and weight loss and preventative health services. I would train their staff. I would send them to the right. We would certify them in certain practices and processes. And, I did that for many, many years. And I worked with hundreds of the best practitioners in the country that all had their specialty. And this is the problem I see with modern medicine is specialty. Everyone is so specialized that when somebody comes in with a functional or chronic problem, the issue is that the body has problems in more than one system. So if I go to a chiropractor and and I'm thinking that my problem is only musculoskeletal, but I've had the problem for 2 years. It probably involves my immune system. It probably involves other systems. So if I go to a chiropractor, it's no wonder that every solution is an adjustment. If I go to a hormone specialist, it's no wonder that every solution involves hormones. We have so many specialists that don't talk to other specialists. And what we need is more generalists. And that's what I realized, someone that knew enough about everything that could connect the dots and organize the information for you. That's why Cleveland Clinic is more effective than almost everywhere else, because it's organized between collaborative practitioners. But you can't turn the world that direction. It's just not, medicine's not designed that way. And so I said, well, how can we biohack? How can we hack the system? How can we change this? And then started to emerge, when I was in the field, started to emerge this role of functional medicine and health coaching and functional practitioners that started to become more generalists. They started opening up avenues of being able to work multiple systems at once to get cohesion, because it's in the cohesion of the ecosystem of the body that all of a sudden you start getting unimaginable health outcomes, rather than just staying in your little lane like your scope of practice tells you to, which I understand if you need to be a good boy and girl, or if you're afraid that you don't want to upset the system, or you're afraid of peer judgment, or getting your staff to like turn and do this new thing and learn these new processes. All these challenges face the modern practitioner. And they're riddled with debt from getting their license. And then they are threatened heavily by the system to be a good boy and girl. And so, of course, they're not going to expand their practices. And so I learned from the best. And so then what I did was, because I sat in on cases, I mean, I probably reviewed in my 5 years 100,000 cases from every type of different doctor's perspective or practitioner. Reiki, MD, DO, ND, DC, you name the initials. I reviewed their cases and saw how they approached the problem. And so then what I did was took all the best practices and I organized them, right, into a process that we call the 4F method, which now today we train at our university, which is also in over, right now, about 1,500 practices in the United States, and probably reaches close to 500,000 people a year. And so that's how this all crazy thing kind of got started. Was just a sick boy trying to get solutions.
I love that. That's so amazing. So that's why, I tell a lot of the providers I bring on or people I bring on, they have a story just like myself. And to your point, like you nailed it, right? So I had 15 years of training. I got out of school, $500,000 in debt. I'm an endocrinologist. And you learn in school that you just treat TSH, women don't need hormones, like all these crazy things. And you're right. You get out into the world and I saw people aren't getting better. This doesn't make sense. And I had my own hormone issues as well. And I was the same way as you. Like you I remember the first time I started looking at literature about T3 and about hormones in women. And I was like, why don't they teach us this in school? And then to your point, yes, you're just scared. Like all the endocrinologists I work with at the time are like, you're crazy. You shouldn't do that. They still think I'm crazy, but that's fine. But to your point, there's just so many issues in medicine where, yes, I was that person. I was that person where it's like, well, here's my box. This is what I belong in. Although I'm a trained internal medicine doctor, which is a generalist, right? I'm also a specialist, so I'm only supposed to look at this box. And then one day in 2020, I was like, screw this, the hell with all of it. Like nobody's getting better. I was just mad. And I'm like, I'm going to do what I want. And I went into the functional medicine space, and the last 5 years have been so rewarding in our practice. And I tell people this all the time. They come to me and I tell them, your first visit, you're going to be here an hour. And when you leave, you're going to be overwhelmed because I'm going to tell you every system of your body that's not working and everything we need to do to fix it, starting at your mitochondria. And then we talk about your gut and people are just like, a lot of them are overwhelmed, but some of them are mad, and they should be, because they're like, I've seen 10 doctors. I saw a lady yesterday. I've seen 10 doctors. I've spent $20,000 and nobody's told me any of this. And I just keep getting sicker and taking more medicine. You should be outraged if that's you as a person. And we have totally failed you in the medical system, right? And so that's why I love what you do, because you do kind of what I've sort of figured out on my own. I wish I would have found you 5 years ago. You could have made this process a lot easier, because it's been really hard to figure out on my own. But that's what we do, is like, we help you figure out, to your point, all the systems that aren't working, your hormones and your gut. I mean, there's so much synergy. And when one is off balance, they're all off balanced. And when your gut's off balanced, You're inflamed and your mitochondria don't work. And then it doesn't matter how many boatloads of supplements, medications, whatever I give you, it's not going to work. Right?
So let's give people a real world application of what you're saying, right? Like let's give a real case study example of what the difference would be, because I want people to understand the reality. I want like a water bottle for them to be able to hold it and understand it. It's very hard for people to understand. And because here's the problem. Most practitioners are working at a disadvantage. Like a cardiovascular doctor is really looking at the system that's probably the third system involved in the problem, but it's where they identified the problem. This is where inductive reasoning is faulty. There's a book called The Problem with Induction, and you'll learn about problem solving inductively in a complex system like the human body. While it chops up really nice for liability purposes and who gets what money and you go where for what, it doesn't lead to healing, which is why we have record numbers of disease, but also record numbers of GDP related to healthcare spending, okay? Because there's more doctors, more research, more pills, more healthcare networks, and yet we're sicker than ever.
Yeah, I saw your post. Yes, I saw your post about nurses, and that was so true. You did this amazing post on social media about how nurses are sicker than they've ever been. They don't pee, they don't drink, and that's the same for providers too. I would say, like
exactly.
I used to be that same person.
Niche down, but this is all healthcare workers,
right? But like I used to literally go to work, Vince, at 8 a.m. And if I didn't get to eat before I got there, then I was lucky to drink water. And I would hold my urine until like 4 p.m. and not drink water because it was like next patient, next patient, next patient. Oh, something happened over lunch. And then one day I was like, this is literally insane. Like literally insane, right? Like I literally gave myself a UTI from holding my urine all day. And I was like, and not eating lunch, you know? But the whole 8 hours I was doing that, I was telling people like, oh, you should be nice to yourself and you should eat better and you should not be stressed. And I was like, I'm done with this. Like, this is insane, right?
So you see, biblically, there's a story about know them by thy fruit. So like the fruit that something bears will tell you if it's good or not. And when you look at the fruit of the modern healthcare worker and their reliance on Western medicine, what they were trained in to take care of themselves, and then you realize that the average practitioner is on 4 to 5 medications over the age of 30. When you realize that their obesity levels are almost higher than the average Americans, when you realize that their average health tend to be sicker than the average American, you begin to realize how could they ever possibly take care of you when they can't take care of themselves?
Correct. I say that all the time and people get a little offended by this, but I'm going to say it again. I highly recommend when you go see a new doctor that you ask that doctor questions about their own personal beliefs as far as health and just look at them. You know, if I walk in to see a cardiologist and they weigh 300 pounds, with all due respect, I'm not going to take a lot of medical advice from that 300-pound cardiologist because it's like, how can you tell me what to do for my health when you can't do it for yourself? And I get a lot of hate on social media when I say that, and I don't care because like that's just factual. Are you going to take financial advice from somebody who's broke? Are you going to go to a trainer that weighs 500 pounds and tell them, hey, teach me how to make muscle? It's the same about your providers. That's how I feel anyways.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so what we did, so there is a way, the system is the problem and the record number of ill because of our society. So one of the things that I had to do was go back and go, okay, the challenge is actually modern society and the record number of ill. And then you're putting pressure on a system, right? So the system then obviously is also insurance companies looking how to pay for it all, and they're trying to make more money. And then it puts it on the networks, and then the networks put it on the provider, and then the different providers put it on the nurses, and it just kind of like it goes all the way down the line. And what I have to recognize is that the methodology that they approach things with is not the most effective tool, and they're put in an impossible situation where the patient believes that healthcare is free and is their responsibility. And so they're put in this impossible scenario. And what we've learned through my 20 years of being in the field is that part of the problem is how you're solving problems. So let me give you an example. The 4F method that I've created starts with very specific systems and unlocks those systems in a certain order in order to reproduce verifiable results and a very high success rate, okay? So we took 7,000 people, didn't do labs, followed the 4F process to prove a point for a second, that it's not as much about the labs as it is getting the ecosystem back in alignment. So we didn't do labs on every condition that you can think of: autoimmune, PCOS, hormone imbalance, PMDD, I mean, gut issues, doesn't matter. We applied the 4F process. It had an 88% success rate of people who achieved a 90% symptom relief or more in a 6-month period, right? They achieved 50%, had a 90% in 3 months, right? And the reason that I did that, and we're about to study the flush, which is what at USF, by the way, we're getting into the research side because I've got to get the world to see what we're doing here that really works. But what I want you to understand is that the body is not that mystifying if you start at the right place and you end at the right place. So let's go back to high blood pressure, okay? Someone comes into the doctor, they're not changing their diet, they're not changing any of these factors, their blood pressure is really high, and they're like, so the doctor sees that, the doctor gives them maybe an ACE inhibitor, starts with a lisinopril, and then says, come back in 3 to 6 months to see me, okay? That's making the assumption that the RAS system is the problem, okay, which is related to heart, kidney, lung, all that. And so by the kidney's the problem, so if I lower the ACE in the release from the lungs, actually, whatever, but that the kidney, localized to the kidney, I can deal with the problem. Well, actually, if you started with something like the nervous system, which controls the RAS system, the lymphatic system, which puts pressure on the RAS system and in your vascular system, if you flushed out the gut where cellular most immunological inflammation that's putting pressure on the kidneys is coming from, you flush that liver and that gut out. If you just started there, right, and get total body water back into the muscle and not in the lymphatic, not in the subcutaneous tissue, you could reduce blood pressure by 15% within 10 to 20 days, okay? So, and we have a system for that. It's called the flush. So we're able to, in a very short period of time without medication, work the blood pressure issue without even touching really focused on the kidneys or giving a medication for it. Or you can start with the medication, work the process. What I'm getting at is if you start with those systems and you keep going in order, the next system would be fully working the gut, right? Then after that, you go into the vessels and work certain hormones. So the pancreas, you have insulin, ghrelin, leptin. These are like nutrient partitioning hormones that dictate blood sugar levels, nutrients getting into the cell. That's when you start working cellular inflammation, is by working those particular hormones. Then you go into the cell and you work mitochondria and your DNA, which you can do cellularly. There's things that you can do. Get rid of the bad cells that are in your body, replace them with good cells. And then you finish with the endocrine system. Even though I stimulated thyroid in the beginning, at the end, you balance out sex hormones. Because sex hormones are an end user product. They are not a beginning product. They're an end user. So if we do things in that order, people end up with hormone balance every single time, as long as they're still producing hormones. And I didn't even have to touch hormones, or I didn't even have to touch. So there's an order that if you follow the order of operations, which we call the 4F method, you're going to get it right every time, close to it, without getting overly deep in the labs, without doing all this stuff. Not that we don't love all those things, and you can still add those things. I don't want to say don't use evidence, but the body's realignment is more of a trade school practice than it is of higher learning, Harvard. You've got to know biochemistry to this nth degree in order to do it. It's not. And so it's just super interesting. And that's why we're training so many physicians and coaches, because I can take someone off the street and teach them this, right? And under a practitioner, or they get certifications with nutrition and whatever, and they just support them from the outside. That's what we've been doing. We're proving that we can do that at a really high level.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating, and I agree with you, and I know that it works. Our health coach went through your 4F, program, like I was telling you, and she's kind of doing it with me right now, but it all makes sense too, right? Like the sad thing I think about traditional medicine is that doctors 2,400 years ago had a better grasp on holistic medicine and gut health than we do today, right? Like Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine, all disease begins in the gut. Like he had a better idea over 2,000 years ago about how to treat people than we do today. And it's so frustrating because doctors miss this. And so, and a lot of it is our education, the traditional healthcare system. But how do you see people like yourself, health coaches, like how do you see integrating them with traditional medicine? Like how can we get rid of some of these, misconceptions between health coaches are bad and, back and forth? Like how do you see a better integration system working?
Yeah. So right now, what I ended up doing is I created the method. And so after that, we started scaling the business and then brought on other practitioners like licensed oversight. So there's two ways to really do this, in my opinion, whether you're outside the medical system or you're inside the medical system. I think I'll talk about inside the medical system for a while. The problem is, one, is being able to show them quick wins so that they can integrate and make profit early on because they're under pressure. Whatever their shtick is making them money, and to divert patients away from that to something new has to drive a revenue source right away that is also either billable or not billable. And health coaching is becoming billable. I don't think that's the way that you would want to go because it's kind of poor, and I'm sure the payouts take a really long time, as with everything. But the first thing that we have to, again, do is that the practitioner has to open up a space for cash-pay services in their business. And they have to be okay with that, typically, right? And that can be challenging, getting them to even offer cash-pay services in, obviously because there's some legalese to be careful with, but and then being open to offering additional services and prescribing for them. So this is where practice management always got messy because a doctor might care a lot about this stuff, may want to do it, but then they are often challenged with how do I train my front end staff, my manager, my nurses, like how do I get everyone else on board? And that is so challenging a lot of times that like, how am I going to do all this? That's why at our university, we provide the education and then we have integrators because it's like integration. Without integration, the education means nothing.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like the frustrating thing to your point is the reason that healthcare, I don't think is ever going to change. My patients ask me this all the time. So I don't take insurance anymore. And my patients ask me all the time, do you ever think healthcare is going to change where you can get paid to do this through my insurance? And I just tell them point blank, no. And they say, why? And I say, because if you get better, then you don't need to go to the doctor. And so then the insurance companies start losing money. If you don't need labs, if you don't need medications, if you don't need MRIs, if you don't need surgeries, we have built medicine on this system where it is a profitable business, and that's a problem. And I don't know how you fix that from an insurance perspective, but I mean, I just don't ever see it changing because to your point, as soon as you start actually making people well, like the endocrinologist I used to work with in Oklahoma City, there's a group of them. They're employed by a hospital system, Mercy, but they're like, well, if you get rid of patients, if you make them well and they don't come back, then who are you going to see? And I'm like, are you kidding me? There's millions of people that are sick. Like, who are you going to see? Your mindset is not in the right place.
It's the mindset. So we have a scarcity mindset versus an opportunity mindset, and don't realize that there's always business, right?
And my thing is like, yeah, and the reason I love what I do, like I tell patients all the time, my goal is to get you off medicine, get you healthy. You come in once a year, let's check on you. Let's make sure nothing's going awry. Let's talk about things. But like, I think a lot of the problem is that in medicine has become this giant like money maker for the United States. And the other problem is, to your point, implementation. So I remember when I started doing functional health, functional medicine and doing cash pay stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's scary because you're like, well, I'm not going to get paid, but let me tell you what, insurance companies didn't pay me very well either. And it would go months and months and months. And I still have insurance companies that owe me money and I haven't taken insurance for a year. So it's like, but the cool thing is people are actually getting better. And so to your point, implementing it into a practice can be difficult, challenging, scary. I wish I would have known about you over a year ago, but it is so rewarding. And that's what people need, right? And to your point, like these little wins, they need it. Now we do use labs at Modern Endocrine because I'm a huge data junkie. Like I love data. And I feel like some people, not all of them, but some people, if you show them actually like look at your labs, like, because I see people all the time, they're like, I feel fine, but my wife drugged me here. And I'm like, oh, well, that's great. You're fasting insulin 60. And, you show them that and you show them their A1C is high and you show them data and then they go do the thing, whatever you tell them to do. And then they come back and they're like, well, I don't feel any different. And this is just some people. When you show them the data again, like, oh, well, really, your insulin went from 60 to 20. So I have a really hard time feeling or like believing you don't feel different. Then at least they're motivated to keep doing what they're supposed to be doing. Cause right, they went from an F to a B plus. So,
and remember, I'm all about labs.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we overcomplicate
It's true.
things when we say it needs to be a million labs and we have to figure it all out. We can make people feel significantly better and get them to a place that like they probably will be just fine on their own with a process rather than micromanaging with labs and making scalpel moves when really putting the body back into alignment will do 90% of the work for you. And that's all the argument. Because I agree. We look at genetics. We do genetics coaching. I actually love genetics. We do a lot of genetics coaching. And we love Dutch test, GI map, and advanced blood work. We love all that stuff. But again, and the accuracy goes up with labs, which is great because there are outliers. There are things that are going on that you're going to want to address. But by and large, people with chronic health issues, it's the same play more often than you might think, even if they're coming in with different labels, which are diagnoses.
No, and I would agree with that because I think from what I've seen and what I know about hormones is I think all disease processes start with inflammation. I know that they do because people that are sick are inflamed. And so it's just what's causing that inflammation. And a lot of times it's insulin and cortisol because of our gut and because of our lifestyle. And so that brings me to my next question for you, which is, so I preach all the time that your gut and your nutrition and your sleep and your stress and all these things play into your health. I know that you believe that as well. So kind of to walk us through like how you feel like the gut and these things play with health. And then tell people about the flush we were just talking about, because I also am, so I am almost 40. I am that age of woman who believed that cardio is everything. Eating less was everything. Like you need to be stick thin. You're supposed to do an hour of cardio and you're supposed to eat less. And then I turned 35 and things started changing. And then I turned 38 and things really started changing. And the harder I pushed, the harder my body pushed back. And so now I'm smart enough to know that you need to lift weights, you need to sleep, you need to give your body rest, and you need to feed it correctly. But I want you to talk about, like, you tell listeners why when we turn 39 and 40 and we push really hard, our body pushes back and sometimes we stop having menstrual cycles and we gain weight, and like why that happens and how we fix that.
This is probably the first time that anyone's going to have ever heard this before. It's very real. The data, the science is very real. Again, 20 years trying to figure out what was changing women's metabolisms. Women are the underrepresented in research. There are many conditions that are exploding in women right now that just the NIH, American Heart Association, no one's paying attention to because the symptoms are diverse enough that we're not putting patterns together. We see that under the age of 25 or 25 and 35, cancer rates are skyrocketing, strokes, irregular, responses to, whether it's birth control or other medication injury, we'll call it injury. We're seeing all-time rates. And we're looking at blood sugars and we're saying, well, the problem is carbohydrates. And I'm going to tell you right now that carbohydrates are not the problem. And this is because we are simple enough human beings that we think that your blood glucose has everything to do with eating sugar because it turns into glucose. And it's like, no. That's a complete misunderstanding of what's happening. Your body makes glucose, okay? Like it converts, it will make glucose because your body, it's one of the ways it's the nutrient driver, okay? Now you have a recycling bin energy source too, which is AMPK, ketones, things like that. But you think that your glucose level is dictated by your intake of carbohydrates because you're looking at the short term. If I cut all my carbs, it looks like my sugars go down. And it's like, no, what's happened there is you've cut your calories and reduced and to cut out inflammatory foods. So you've reduced inflammation, which makes glucose absorb faster, which is why your sugars are down. For example, the flush program that you're doing right now, 12 days, is basically juice and fruits and carbohydrates and lower protein, moderate fat. And we increase your calories, and we can show you with CGMs that your sugar is the average. I can get a diabetic, type 2 diabetic sugars to drop way more using carbs than removing carbs. And we prove it every single day. That's why we're going to do this study at the University, USF, and show you guys. Because removing oxidative stress, removing toxins, improving cellular function, supporting the endocrine system, calming the nervous system, is going to do more to calm what's called the immune system. People think that food dictates your total cellular inflammation in your body, and I am sorry. That is incorrect. Food represents about 20% of your total daily cellular inflammation. What dictates majority of the inflammation in your body is what phase of immune function that you're in. So this is where inflammation is 2 stages, and it's drawn by the immune system. There's the initiation phase and the resolution phase. And one of the reasons that when you're young and you can fall off a building and drink poison and be good the next day, and when you're 38 and you sleep only 4 hours and you feel like you have a hangover, the reason is what phase of immune system you tend to stay in longer. And so that, because when we're in phase 1, we have a bunch of unresolved inflammation. That's why we're swollen, tired, bloated. Everything starts slowing down because in phase 1 immune function, most of our cellular ATP, or energy production, is going to phase 1 immunity, not to our cells to produce energy, be vibrant, and be active, right? Which is why women find out about women as they get older. They stop getting the flu. They rarely get sick a lot of times, especially as they hit menopause, okay? Their immune systems, they feel like crap all the time because their immune system is overactive. Well, where is 80% of the immune system housed? The gut. The gut is really not the thing. It's the immune system in the gut that is interacting with your microbiome. That's the thing. Because your gut doesn't go to every system in the body, but your immune system does. So if you trigger your immune system in your gut, you will have inflammation all over your body, right? So people don't realize it. Getting down oxidative stress in your life is going to be a more effective tool than cutting your carbohydrates. Carbs is not going to lengthen your life the way that you think it is. It's actually going to tire out your thyroid. It's going to make you nutrient deficient. It's going to plummet your hormones. Not that you can't cut carbs for a while, but your blood glucose level is a measure of the inflammation in your body and the resistance to glucose easily getting into your cells. It has nothing to do with your carbohydrate intake. Nothing. A short term, if I eat just simple carbs with no fiber or protein around it, my sugars might spike a little bit more. But unless you're type 2 diabetic, spikes don't matter. We're looking at 2-hour postprandials and your average throughout the day. That's what matters. And you're fasted. Not if I ate some carbs and I spiked to 50 or 60 points, or I only spiked to 30. If you have enough muscle and you have a good enough metabolism, you can do that. It doesn't matter. It's when people start losing muscle, they're too stressed out. So their phase 1 immune system is active because you're stressed all the time, so your immune system's responding to your thoughts. Your microbiome starts to change, so there's irritation in the gut between your microbiome and your immune system. It's dumping inflammation. You're starting to have poor lifestyle habits. You're sleeping a little less, which then you stop going into phase 2. Why do you think sleep is the longevity? Sleep is when you go into phase 2 resolution immunity. You start cleaning out bad cells. You clean out junk and AMPK. You go into recycling. People are no longer going into recycling, and there's no supplement that's going to stop it. It's called immunometabolism. So sugars start to go up, and that's why cancer rates are skyrocketing. It's why autoimmune rates are skyrocketing, infertility skyrocketing. And the more antibiotics you take, the more viruses that you get, i.e. like COVID, the more that these things happen, the higher your sugars are going to go, the more swollen and tired you're going to get, and then the more likely stroke, autoimmune, something's coming for you, cancer. because phase one immunity creates something called immunosenescence. These are undead cells that sit in your body that are not processing glucose, they're dumping inflammation, and that is why you have to go through a process of using either some fasting, or you go to caloric restriction, or you use resistance training, or you try to sleep more and you reduce your stress. That helps your body move into phase two immunity to eat those cells out of your body. And that's how you're going to really reduce your risk of cancer, of anything, increase your longevity. And that's the real truth about healing that people should look it up. Immunometabolism, it's a whole field of biology that absolutely exists. No one's paying attention to it. And that's why all my books are coming out. I'm screaming at the hilt. This has nothing to do with your carbs. It has everything to do with the net total oxidative stress level from toxicity, from over-consuming calories, from eating ultra-processed food, from toxic environments, social media, toxic people, places, and things, an unhealthy microbiome because of the assault from fillers and everything we do. And if we don't combat that appropriately, I don't care if you get your blood pressure down, you're still going to die young. I don't care if you take a metformin and get your blood sugars down, you're still going to die young. It doesn't change. You're just changing a biomarker. You're not fixing the ecosystem. And that's what people need to realize. They think that they're doing something and they're not. It's just making the pharmaceutical companies more money.
Yeah, it all goes back to, again, a holistic approach. Like I tell my patients, you have to be doing all of these things. And to your point, your nervous system, like this world is so stressed and we just have so many, to your point, negative thoughts. Like I call it break up with your phone. On the weekends, I love to break up with my phone. People get really upset because they're like, oh, I text you on Friday and you didn't respond till Sunday, because I don't want to look at my phone from Friday to Sunday if I don't have to. Like every time you get on social media, negative things, like it's just, there's so much negativity in this world. And then we're stressed and we're being, made to feel like we're not doing enough and we need to go to the next thing. And it's just kind of crazy. And all that, yes, over time builds, right? And it causes you to be very stressed and then very stressed, and then you're not getting sleep and it affects your immune system. And then it ultimately affects your gut, right? Like I take care of so many people who come in and they say, I have anxiety, I have depression, I feel stressed. And then when you talk to them about their gut, they have constipation and bloating and diarrhea and, and then they're like, can you fix it? And I'm like, well, we have to address what's causing all that, which is normally other things, right? And so that's where medicine is, just to your point, it's so hard to just look at one thing. Like you have to look at all of it. And sometimes people get really frustrated with me. They're like, so you mean I need to eat better and I need to move and I need to sleep? And I mean, yes, you need to do all those things because your nervous system and your immune system are all functioning on your cortisol, on your insulin, on, all these hormones.
Which, to your point right there.
I mean,
so this is why I believe the functional care movement, which I believe is already occurring right now, the movement is going to be very similar to the nursing movement of the 1940s to the 2000s, where we saw it went from about 180,000 nurses to about 3.5 million nurses over the course of that time. It was a revolution in healthcare that focused on the human element of healing. I believe that revolution is coming again in the form of a health coach that will be armed, because the only way you're going to get someone to make all those changes is if somebody holds their hand, because it is not medicine that will do it. It is the human element of healing. It is one person helping another. It is the relationship. Western medicine fails to recognize that it is the human experience of relationship that heals. It is not a pill, right? It is not a procedure. It is a relationship. And through that relationship, a practitioner can walk them through simple, organized stages of recovery that are reproducible, organized, and simple to get someone from diseased in multiple systems to vibrant, living their best lives. And that's the only way we're going to get people out of the matrix. It's going to take an army of functional health coaches. And it just so happens we've got an army sitting in every gym in America who just lost some weight, who is desperate to help another person, which are your trainers, fitness goers, and we convert them into health coaches and we get them into proactive care, and we really, for the first time in human history, take the fight to lifestyle disease. That's the only way to do this. I have done the math a million times, which is why I have my own healthcare network. I have my own doctors, coaches. You come in, it's all concierge, virtually online. And I've got a university where I'm converting people into what we call a hybrid practitioner so that you're more of a generalist. And then we're sending them out there to help others. We call it the 1 in 100, which is one hybrid practitioner for every 100 people in the United States, because that's what nursing's at right now. And that's the only way we're going to change things. One person helping one other person, one at a time. And that's it. That's the only way it's going to get done. I've done the math a million ways. You're not going to protocol it out of existence. You're not going to semaglutide it out of existence. It's going to take it. And that's why it's already happening. All the technologies that are being created in virtual health systems are all about coaching services and touch points and all of that stuff. And that's why this is coming. Whether it's AI generated or human generated, this is where it's going.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think the amount of time you have to spend with someone is a lot, but it's because there's a lot going on, and they need a friend, they need a relationship. And that's why, part of the reason I stopped taking insurance, and that's part of the reason, my visits are longer, is because it's just, there's so many things that the education piece is really important too, right? There's so much bad education out there. And that's one thing I hate about social media, is anyone can get on social media and say they're a whatever and start educating people. And it's like, you have no clue what the hell you're talking about. And it infuriates me. That's actually the only reason I started this podcast. And that's the only reason I got on social media. Hated social media, hated it. I still don't love it. But the only reason I'm on it, and the only reason I do this podcast, is because I am a dual board certified endocrinologist, very intelligent, have the credibility to teach you something about education. And I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm always up to learn. I have zero ego. I will tell you when I've done things wrong, and I have in the past. But I want to give people good information so that they can make themselves better. And that's why I find people like you, I find whoever will come on that has credible information to give. And then I put it out there for free for people, because, if you're listening to this, you can send this to as many people as you want, and they can actually learn things that are valuable to their health and true, right? And one of the things which you said to me, which I think it's so important that people know, is I don't care what really frustrates me is women or men go to doctors, and doctors say, well, they're judged instantly. Well, you need to eat better and exercise more. And that is not the answer. The answer is holistically fixing them, like you said, flushing them out, fixing their gut, fixing their lymphatics, having them sleep more. And actually, you reverse diet some people where they're having more calories, and I know this. And so I want you to explain to people this mentality that we have is so wrong, and it's so broken. Because if it was that easy, Vince, right, nobody would be obese, right? If you could literally eat 1,300 calories a day for a week and lose, 5 pounds, people would do it, right? It's not that they don't have willpower. That's not the problem.
The war that we're fighting is not a medical one. It is a social, it is a physical, and in my opinion, a spiritual problem. But it's because it's all of those things together. And so the doctor's trying to fight a fight with one arm behind their back, because we say that doctors are oracles. Go see your doctor about everything. Your doctor is an expert in Western medicine for procedure and prescription approaches to care. And that's good. That's great. They should be there. But we like to hide all liability behind them when we shove all those people to get answers from them that they don't have. And then they're expected to have the answers and be the oracle. And so then they just kind of start saying stuff, and just, it's a really tough situation to put people in. I will contend for you. And so that's why what I would like to see, and what I've been fighting for a long time, is that if a practitioner is just willing to prescribe a health coach, you would be surprised how many people would bite on it if you just had one in your office, right? You have a generally supervised process. They come back in every 12 weeks to see you just to make sure it's good. We have a process for this. It wouldn't cost much to take one of our licensed coaches, right, certified coaches, stick them in your office. They see you for whatever the condition is, and you say, hey, I'm going to prescribe you lisinopril for this high blood pressure, but if you really want to get off this blood pressure medication, make sure that you're your dick works really good and get whatever else is they care about.
That's what they
right?
care about, that one.
I know. That's why I said it. For men, you hit below the belt, and women above the waist. You know what I mean, right? Waist up. And say, go see him for 12 weeks, couple visits while we're working on this, and I'm going to work to get you off. That conversation alone is all I'm asking for from doctors. That's all I'm asking for. You don't have to train them. You just got to build in a referral, and you got to write the damn script, prescribe it, right? And we have that. If any doctor wants to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to give this a try, I can give them a certified coach in their practice tomorrow. Say, give it a whirl, man. You know, what do you got to lose? You know, you're not serving every doctor is just really stressed, but they damn well know that they could be doing more for their patients. Okay. They're aware, they're afraid. Okay. And so this is what we're fighting for, is to create these systems to make it easy for them. And then if they don't want to do it, then you can't be mad. And this is the thing I was going to tell you. Technology diffuses in really funny ways. So functional medicine and health is diffusing in social media right now. It's being spread. So it is a good thing, even though it has its downside. It is a good thing that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is on the internet talking about gut health, talking about this. Now, yes, does it cause some confusion? And yes, do some people get injured by it or get taken advantage of? They certainly do. But I'm here to tell you that this is how industries are formed. It always starts in chaos and everybody and their mom jumps in. That's a good sign for the future of an industry. So while it is frustrating to hear people say random stuff and don't know what they're talking about, it's better that you have that and everybody else talking about it than no one talking about it at all, which is what we had just 8 to 10 years ago. And then soon enough, more certifications, more structure will come in over time that will hopefully drown out a lot of those people that don't need to be listened to, and bring in, like, that's why we need more people like you to give a muse of, like, here's a licensed practitioner who also spent the time learning functional medicine that is available to talk to you. But because there's not enough of you, we can't complain when free thinking capitalists step in to fill the gap.
Yeah, but what we can do is keep doing what we're doing and fighting the good fight and hopefully educating people. Because I will say, I wanted a health coach forever. I couldn't find the right fit. And the one that I found is so amazing and, has helped so many of my patients. Love her so much. And like I said, went through your program and has changed so many of my patients' lives already. And it's not that, and here's the other thing. I think some doctors have egos, which is, my ego got checked years ago. I have zero. But as a provider, sometimes I think it's hard to give up that, like, oh, well, I don't know enough, so I'm going to let you talk to somebody who has less education than me. I tell my patients all the time, Sarah, my health coach, you want to talk to her. She knows all of this. Like, I know it, but I don't have the time to sit here and give it to you. And she knows it in a better way. Like, she even goes into them, like, spiritually, mentally, keeps them accountable. Like, that is her calling, right? My calling is to be able to oversee it and make sure, yes, she's not outside of lines. We have very strict guidelines she follows, but, like, let her do her thing with you, because that's what, she's meant to do. And I'll oversee it and make sure nothing bad is happening so that I can oversee a lot of it. And I think sometimes providers just get very, like, they're like, no, I don't want anyone else messing with my patients. I don't want to refer my patient. That is the stupidest line of thinking I have ever heard of. Like, I want all the great people helping my patients, right? Like, I know I can't do it all on my own. And so I think that's the problem too, is, like, as soon as you get one too, as soon as you get a health coach as a provider and you get a good one, your patients will let you know in a week that it was the best investment you ever had. Like, my patients come back and say, oh my gosh, Sarah made me realize this and made me realize this. And, like, I saw one the other day that's lost 12 pounds in 3 months and has never felt better. And, only talked to Sarah about trauma and this and that. And now she feels, just so many things. And so it's just, that's the other problem too. Is, like, some people have
I'm glad you're showing people
egos, right? And that's really dumb. So
I always try to remind practitioners of the oath that they took, because the oath clearly states, right, that you are willing to be collaborative, to find solutions.
Always.
And what happens is we become control freaks because we're worried about ourselves. And we don't want anybody else getting involved in our stuff, because it's the same crap you see in fitness. and there's no place for it. And to me, that is a dereliction of your duty, your fiduciary responsibility to your patients. And I would say to people that were called to tend their flock, shame on you. Shame on you for becoming self-centered about the business of healing.
A rising tide sells all ships, and the more people you have in your circle cheering you on and telling you the same thing, the more likely you are to do it. So, and if you are a provider and you didn't realize, there are hundreds of millions of people that are so sick, and if you have an ego to think that you can take care of all of them, well, good for you. But there's always going to be sick people, unfortunately, for you to take care of. And so that's the other thing. I think that providers need to just set that somewhere and say, you know what? There's always somebody smarter than me. There's always somebody that can teach me something. And I'm the same way. Like, I feel very educated, very blessed, very trained, but I'm always like, I want to be the stupidest person in a room. Always. I put myself in rooms where I'm like, I am the dumbest person. I feel very vulnerable. But I love it because I'm like, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to learn something, right? Just like you, like Sarah told me about your program. I'm like, I know nothing about this. I need to learn about this, right? That's like what we should be doing. Like you're put here to serve, right? That's how I feel. I feel like every day I'm here to serve other people. My calling is to serve people and help them be healthy so that they can do their calling and serve people. And so you can't do it with a closed mind, though. You have to do it collaboratively.
But yeah, when you're in a restrictive system, though, it makes you give up on others and serve yourself. Because it's like nothing's working at this point. It's like, hell, I got to get my check and I got to get out of here. And that's what happens.
And I understand that because that was me from 2017 to 2020. And to your point, it's really scary because you owe all this money. You have to pay this money back. If you don't do what you're told by the system and see more patients, you don't get paid. But that's just not like the oath that you took, and that's not how medicine should be. So I think patients have to demand better and providers have to demand better for sure. So I want to ask you 3 questions before we go. This is great. I could talk to you forever, but so 3 questions, don't overthink them. 1-word answers. People love this. What is one food that's most beneficial and why? I said, don't overthink it.
I know, but there's just too many of them, and you can't bone broth. Okay. That's such a cop-out answer, but it's a good one.
No, it's great. Why do you think it's healthy?
Berries is probably the superfood, though. If I had to go with one, it's probably berries.
Antioxidants. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
What is one thing that anyone can do for their health that's completely free to better their health?
One thing they can do for their health is completely free is to do variable walking. So split up 20 minutes twice a day. The research is incredible when you split your walking up post-meal.
I love that. I see that too. And go outside and do it with somebody you love. Oxytocin, sunlight, amazing.
Do it quietly.
Quietly.
We'd like to get the dopamine reset. We like quiet walks.
Okay, quiet walks. And what is one thing you wish you would have known about your health 20 years ago that you would have done differently today if you would have known that?
That building muscle isn't everything. Like I used to think that mTOR was the most important thing and that muscle was the number one thing. And I traded everything else for muscle and then realized later that while it's important, it's not as important as I thought it was. I mean, it's very important to have muscle, but for all my fitness people out there, there's a limiting factor that eventually diminishing return that begins to happen at 10% body fat or at having a certain amount of muscle that's putting pressure on your vascular system when we think about longevity, health, and everything. There's a window of where muscle is really important, but it's not everything. I know that's probably counteractive of what we talk about, but to be quite honest with you, the bodybuilding community is going to have a shorter lifespan than the average person because they're over committing to the muscle issue, and it will have a limiting effect.
Yeah, I'm a very, so I try not to just put myself in like extreme boxes. I'm not an extremist. I'm a very so I love muscle, but sometimes my coach is like, oh, let's lean you out. Let's make you big. And I'm like, I'm good. Like I don't like anything in extreme. So I like that you say that.
I like being jacked. Nothing wrong with it. But if you overcommit to just on the muscle side and you don't realize other longevity tools and you're only thinking you're driving mTOR, I'm telling you, your lifespan is going to be shorter. It just doesn't matter how good you look. Your lifespan is going to be shorter. Bodybuilders that get a little too large, they live 5 to 10 years less than the average person. So like muscle clearly at some point is a limiting factor.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it. We will link all your stuff in the show notes. So your social media, all your courses, everything that you do. But I just want to say thank you for spending your life training and teaching people, fighting the good fight, trying to fix this healthcare system.
All right. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Perfect.
All right. Have a good day. I hope you found that information educational. I really wanted to let people know that there is an outlet, even in traditional medicine, with these health coaches. They are amazing. Modern Endocrine has a phenomenal health coach. And I really think that this is one of the keys to bridging that gap with traditional medicine and helping make people not so sick, being able to help people become well. And so I thought that this was a great conversation just to help people understand the difference between functional and traditional medicine and how we could incorporate some things, even if you are in a traditional medicine system, to really help start opening your eyes and helping patients get well. So if you are somebody who is looking for a health coach or you want this more holistic approach, you think, man, this sounds great. Modern Endocrine has a license in 39 states now. We do virtual visits. We have a health coach. We would be happy to see you. There's more information on our website with a list of every state we can do virtual visits in. If you liked this information, please make sure that you leave us a review. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, we're there. But reviews help me know that I'm doing what I need to be doing and you like the education. I'm very active on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Find me there, send me messages, let me know what you want to learn about. I'm happy to help educate you. And remember, please share this because education is how we are going to change the trajectory of healthcare. Join me next week on the next episode of Hormones, Metabolism, and You. Have a great week. The information presented, including any materials discussed, referenced, or linked within this podcast, are for general educational purposes only, not the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed from you listening to this podcast or utilizing any of the information provided. I am a doctor, but I am not talking to you as your doctor. The information provided is not intended to diagnose or treat health problems or take the place of the professional medical care provided by your doctor. If you are experiencing any health problems, including problems you believe have been touched upon in any respect within this podcast, you should consult your doctor about the problems without delay. You may ask your doctor whether he or she believes the information I have provided would be helpful to you, but you should still consult your doctor immediately and follow his or her medical advice as your treating physician. I'm just here to provide you basic knowledge about the issues we discuss so you are more aware of them and can better discuss them with your doctor. That's why we call it Back to the Basics. Join me on the next episode as we continue our journey.